it's easy to deny the unmanageability in our lives. And oftentimes there's this bulging closet with lots and lots of secrets in it or stuff going on, and we pretend that it's not there. In recovery, treatment brings us into an opportunity for recovery. Treatment doesn't mean that we're in recovery. Treatment brings us to an opportunity for ongoing recovery. And in recovery, the working steps and therapy, ongoing therapy, we can uncover what is the reason why it's so important for us to deny that the bulging closet is there. And we are able to uncover lots and lots of things. And a lot of times it's deep rooted in these core wounds here, right? Probably can't see them from all the way there, but I can't do a session without referring to the core wounds. And oftentimes it's based in fear of what other people will think. Somehow I'm supposed to measure up, and maybe I don't feel like I measure up. There's lots of things going on that we put that mask on, and eventually we become so comfortable wearing the mask that we don't even realize that we're not even seeing ourselves anymore. We're seeing the mask instead. The mask then becomes what we think is me. And in recovery and in treatment and ongoing therapy, we can start to take those masks off. And it can be a scary process because underneath the mask, if we've been wearing them long enough, what does that mean as far as who I am? And we come to this reality sometimes that I have no idea. I have no idea. And that's the good news, because now we can start again, because we were all created perfect. We were all created to be what we were created to be, and we got lost along the way. Addiction causes us to be lost along the way. Recovery helps us to find our true selves. So that's why it's important to know that these are not just words on the wall. This is the pathway to ourselves. Remember? Intimacy. Into me I see. And with a recovery plan, applying it daily, internalizing the information, we can uncover our true selves. Because really, that's what recovery is all about. That's why we're doing all of this. It's not so I can go back to work. That's a bonus. It's not so I can take care of my kids. That's a bonus. It's so that I can have an intimate relationship with myself. And by having a true intimate relationship with myself, knowing myself authentically, then I can have relationships with others. So, moving right along, we could talk a long time about unmanageability. It's going to be uncovered, reminding you that we get sick from spiritual, emotional, physical. We get well from physical, then our emotional, then our spiritual. Okay? Just because we're physically well doesn't mean we're healed and ready to go back to all of the things we talked about on the scale, the balancing scales, right? So balance becomes a very important aspect of our recovery, and knowing our limitations and only taking on a little bit at a time so that way we can stay in balance. And that's an ongoing challenge for anybody, right? So I want to move on to how to incorporate. What does this step mean? How do I know when to apply this step? It's not just words on the wall. So I say that learning how to apply the first step in all areas of our life can be done for any challenge that we're met with. So, anybody have a challenge that we can use as an example? So I'll make one up. I tell Alex, tomorrow morning I want to meet with you. It gives him all night to think about what she want to meet with me for, right? So Alex might be, yay, I'm getting raised, Ms. Pam wants to meet with me, or, oh my God, where's Ms. Pam? So with the substance use disordered individual, the individual that we're gonna identify here with an addiction, okay? Different word, same terminology. The characteristics of the individual with substance use disorder, the brain disorder called the disease of addiction, might automatically go to that negative thinking, right? So if I say to Alex, I wanna meet with you tomorrow morning individually, please set aside that time on your calendar. And he could experience an array of emotions. Anybody can give me some emotions that Mr. Alex might experience.
Anxiety.
Yeah,
That's the
anxiety.
first one that comes to my mind. Yeah.
Right, and I can't tell you how many times patients have said, whenever, if somebody says I have to go see Ms. Pam, it's like, I have to go to the principal's office. That's not the feelings that I want to display. Anyway, yes, anxiety, right? Anything else? Fear. Fear, right.
Ambivalence.
Ambivalence.
Worry.
Okay, for those of you that are watching, I may not spell everything right. I don't have my spell check up here on the board. I'm not doing that stuff. Okay? All right.
Stress.
So fear, stress, right? All good stuff. Not good that you're feeling it, but good responses, right? All right, so this is what I like to teach my patients. So a lot of times, my patients come and they have no idea what the terminology is for these feelings that we have. Okay, so first we have to teach them by pulling up the feelings wheel or a feelings list, because they don't know. They know frustrated, angry, mad, glad, sad. They know those terms, but they don't know this array of all these feelings. So having a feelings wheel, a feelings list is very important. And it seems kind of elementary, I get it, but the reality is that when we started using, we stunted our growth in many, many ways. And we didn't learn these terms, right? Then, because we were under the influence, we were numbing ourselves or causing feelings of a different sort, and we separated from our true feelings. So in recovery, in treatment, we start to bring back the ability to identify our feelings. Yay. And we start to bring back the ability to feel our feelings. So I always tell everybody to kind of overemphasize when we're doing this exercise. So I want everybody to just take their hand and put it on their body where they experience a sensation from any of these things. Okay? Okay? Okay, good. So, for those of you that are watching, if anybody puts their hand on their head, that's not where we feel, that's where we think. So you want to encourage them to find a place on their body. Okay, so I'm going to start here. Tell me, what is the sensation? If you can describe the sensation.
Like a heat, like a buildup of tension goes across my chest, across my shoulders, in my neck.
Beautiful. Right there. Pay attention to that. That's your red flag indicator that something's happening that's triggering this powerlessness. Okay? Please, describe the sensation.
It usually just starts off as similar to what Kara said, like a warm sensation in my abdomen, and it slowly starts to radiate out through my body, but it's real tense and tight feeling.
Beautiful.
I feel like a rush.
Good description. So right there, red flag indicator. Something's happening. This is, I call it the great communicator. We told the great communicator, shut up, I've got this thing, I don't need to hear from you. Now we want to invite the great communicator to be a part of us, because it's going to teach us and help us in all aspects of our lives. It helps us to make decisions, it helps to determine our safety, it helps to determine when we're upset, it helps to determine, hey, it's time to apply the step, okay? Mr. Alex?
I would say just a tightness in my chest, almost like a knot.
Right, knotedness, tightness, right? So those are our great communicators saying, hey, pay attention, okay? Ms. Camille? Uneasy, feeling in my stomach. Right, so jittery, uneasy, jittery, absolutely, right? Look, I just wanted to call him in and say, hey, I need a paper sign. Right? But you see how the human condition, especially if you're substance use disorder, if you have the brain disorder called the disease of addiction, substance use disorder, and we have all of these characteristics, then we're gonna catastrophize and think the worst is gonna happen, and I just simply needed him, before he goes into group, I need a signature sign, right? Like, oh my God, right? Another one that comes up quite regularly is, what is the addict or alcoholic's least favorite word? No. Perfect. Miss Camille. She had it. No, right? Well, no means that I'm not gonna get my way, right? And if I'm, true to my addictive self, right? My self-centeredness says that if I get my way, then I'll be happy. If I don't get my way, then something terrible is gonna happen. So of course I hate the word no. And so when I hear the word no, all of those things happen as well. And others, right? So we might get another feeling, might get another feeling. And anxiety might live here, and stress might live here, and anger might live here. So start to recognize, where do you feel on your body? So for the next 24 hours, I want you to really pay attention to your interactions and to the great communicator, because it's been communicating and it's going to communicate even more. And I just want you to get used to allowing your great communicator to talk to you, okay? But it's not going to say words, it's going to help you to feel feelings. All right, so now we're going to go into, yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely, please.
So, does it matter, you're telling us to locate where on our body, is there, depending on where the location is, does that matter in terms of the emotion, or are we just locating just so we're more self-aware?
Self-awareness, right,
Okay.
right. So just trying to get individuals, whether substance use disorders or mental health disordered individuals, to start to feel their feelings, to trust themselves again, right? Because we've been numb. And so getting in touch with the body and where the sensations are, and allowing and honoring those feelings. And when they come, it's not a bad thing, it's, oh, pay attention. Well, there's something here I don't like. Because let's face it, none of us like to be powerless, right? But it's okay. The world's not gonna end because we're powerless. It's okay. The world's not gonna end because we're anxious. We're gonna build some tools to deal with how do we handle powerlessness, and how do we handle our anxiety, our stress, our fear, our feelings of ambivalence, right? We're gonna have some tools to do that. But before we do that, I wanna ask you, what are the behaviors or attitudes or thoughts that you experience when you feel those feelings? So you see, I'm breaking it down, slowing it way down, right? We're having a process here, right? So something in our life happens, Ms. Pam says, I need to see you in my office, yikes.
Mhm.
Or somebody says, no, you can't go to that, you can't go to Chili's because they serve alcohol. What are you talking about, right? You can't, invite people over and have a barbecue unless it's gonna be a sober party. What? Right? All that kind of stuff is gonna be happening in your lives, and you're gonna start to recognize, I don't really like that. I don't like the feeling that causes, okay? So recognizing that, look, I'm gonna say stuff, Mr. Allen's gonna say stuff, Ms. Camille's gonna say stuff, Ms. Johnny's gonna say stuff, people out there are gonna say stuff that we don't like, we don't agree with, right? So right now, we're in the recognition phase. We're gonna recognize that we had a reaction, whatever that reaction is, okay? Now we're gonna slow it way down, right? So we can process through how would we normally react. So, if I hear the word no, or Ms. Pam says, I need to see you in my office, or anything that you can imagine, a challenge, right? What are my behaviors, attitudes, thoughts?
Negative, I shut down, I seclude myself.
I shut down, okay, so isolation maybe? Shut down, isolate. Are you aware of why you shut down and isolate?
I get really quiet and my mind is.
Mind races. So I don't know if, and I'm just gonna throw a dart, right? We have a big dartboard over there, sometimes my dart hits way off the board, sometimes it's a bullseye. You'll tell me which it is, right? I shut down and I isolate. Because I'm afraid that if I really told you how I feel, we would get into a fight. You would not love me. You would leave me. Or that somehow I would be turned out to be wrong. So therefore, I'm afraid to be wrong. So I'm just gonna go over here, where all of this stuff is gonna live inside of me until I can figure out how to shut it down.
Ding, ding, ding.
And eventually, if I do it enough, I'm gonna drink at it. And when I say drink at it, I'm still talking about use at it, drink at it, shoot dope at it. Okay, understand, right? So those are the kind of things I drink at. And it really has everything to do with me. I think that it has to do with you, but it really has to do with me. My inability to take care of myself. The steps are gonna free me from that, because I'm gonna learn how to take really good care of myself. Right? This is my pathway to the way out of that. Okay? Please hear that. Okay? Doesn't mean you won't ever do that. This is new, right? This is just identifying a pattern when powerlessness gets kicked up, right? And if I continue to follow that pattern, then I'm going to remain in powerlessness. But if I learn how to identify, watch my behaviors, change my behaviors, then that word becomes powerful, because now I have power over my behaviors and actions, and eventually the way I feel about myself. Now, I don't know if anybody's told you yet, but I am one badass recovering woman, and don't mess with me.
I got that one.
Right? Like, it wasn't always that way. It was this way. Right? So we move from that powerlessness and into being empowered. And I'm not saying everybody has to, show up like this Pamela and be a badass recovering woman. I hope you do. But, for what works for you. Okay? All right. Next person. So, told no, have any of these feelings, you're in touch with a sensation on your body, what's your attitude, thought, behavior? Somebody else.
I get angry. I
Angry.
get pissed.
How does anger, so anger would come over here,
Okay,
that probably shows up like a burning sensation somewhere on your body,
you're right.
right? And then you're going to do what?
Speak negatively.
Okay,
Negative, yeah. Whether it be,
so you might like spew negative, remarks towards people,
yes.
okay? All right, anybody else? Or are you gonna scream? Scream. And we're being really polite, right? Some of us throw shit.
Scream.
Yeah.
Spray
cuss,
stuff.
I hit people.
Cuss.
Yeah. Hit,
Dang, you hit people, okay.
throw.
We're not
no,
calling
right,
you to the
right.
office, Ms.
stuff is ugly. You tell me no, you cause me to be anxious, I feel whatever, yeah, it comes out ugly, right? The mask, forget me trying to hold up the mask, too much energy, here I am, right? So I want you to see that, I want you to recognize that, I want you to know that you're not gonna be perfect right away, right? But these are the red flag indicators that our addiction is taken over. And this is the time where we have a choice now, because we're not using. If we're using, the choice is gone. We're gonna show up like this. But because we're not using, we can recognize that we have this sensation, I'm not liking whatever this is how I'm feeling. Feelings aren't bad. This is how I would normally behave. But now, we admitted we were powerless over our addiction. I wonder if this is my addiction showing up. It's kind of ugly. And then our lives have become unmanageable. If I start spewing negative thoughts towards my wife, my husband, my boss, my neighbor, it's probably not gonna turn out well, right? And eventually, if I walk that road far enough, I'm probably gonna drink at it, use at it, maybe break something, right? Did you have a question?
Okay.
Right? So, recognizing that this is the addiction showing up, okay? When we make a decision that we want to enter and make a commitment to this new way of life, I recognize I don't feel good. One of the characteristics I didn't mention is impulsivity. We have a tendency to be impulsive, act before we think. We don't think about the consequences. When I'm angry, I don't care about the consequences if I'm in addiction. It's okay to be angry, but in recovery, we think about the consequences. We think about how is this behavior gonna affect me? How's it gonna affect other people? Because in recovery, we become more other-centered and less self-centered as we heal the spiritual part. So, what would we like it to be? We're still gonna have this array of feelings. We're still gonna have these sensations. As a matter of fact, we're gonna have them more now because we're no longer impaired. We're gonna start to feel these sensations. We're gonna identify that we're frustrated, angry, mad, sad, glad, whatever. What would we like it to be if we experience anxiety, fear, stress?
We'd like it to be calming, but it's not.
How do I get from here to here, right?
Communication.
Calm.
By communicating how you feel. Effectively.
Embracing your feeling, right? Not feeling like you're wrong, right? Accepting that you have this feeling, right? Talk through things, right? We're going to learn how to process and respond, here's a big one, rather than react. Here we're reacting. Here we learn to respond. Based on our true self, based on our authentic self, based on, I have the ability to make a choice here. I don't have to give my power away just because I'm having an uncomfortable feeling. So, a lot of the times when patients live in the supported housing, right? Everything they do, they have to get permission for, right? Like, they have to fill out a paper to get their phone. They have to fill out a pass to go, on a family outing. They have everything, right? And if their therapist comes back and says, I'm sorry, that's denied, do you have any idea, like, what that looks like? Therapists are like, yay, there's nobody in supportive housing right now. Right?
I'm sure there's a lot of anger.
Right? So we have to process through it, and And of course, it feels really hard, but it's really a great opportunity for the individual to experience some of these in a safe place, in a safe environment, so they see just how ugly it is, and they have the ability to get in touch with the sensations that they feel, to be able to talk in a safe place about what it feels like to have to work no, or to have any of these feelings. What does it look like? What do they want to do? Of course, they're gonna usually be a little bit more reserved just because they're in, and other people are looking at them. And then they're able to move to this new place, right? So, in the 12-step fellowships, you're gonna hear that the steps are written in order for a reason, which I do believe. But I also wanna take one step further and say, if we wait to work on our character defects or recognize our character defects and start to smooth out the rough edges until we get to step 6, we may never get there. What do you hear me saying?
You gotta start somewhere.
If we say, well, that's a character defect, I don't really have to work on that yet, cause I'm not to step 6.
Time denial.
I may drink at it before I ever get to step 6. You see, if I recognize that when I get stressed out or I get angry and the police are coming because I wanna beat the shit out of somebody, right? Like, what do you think's gonna happen if I go down that road, right? As soon as I get released, I'm going out to use, right? Cause F it. I'm never gonna be able to get this thing. But with a first step in our lives and the ability to internalize it, incorporate it, and know what it feels like, and know what it looks like, and have an alternative choice, then I don't have to be fighting with people, and it can prevent me from the danger of using, right? So I need to start working on this stuff right away. I say it comes up in the first step. Don't wait till the 6th step to start working on character defects. Now, another disclaimer is, in the 12-step fellowships, they call them character defects. In therapy, we call them maladaptive behaviors. Can you see where these are maladaptive? Right? They're maladaptive behaviors. They work for us for some reason, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't do them. So we have adapted these behaviors that are not getting us where we want to go. So in therapy, we call them maladaptive behaviors, not character defects. But I say, whatever you want to call them, start to identify them and don't wait until it's too late. Start working on them now. You know, it's okay to recognize I hit people and I throw things. Just don't keep doing it. What are you gonna do instead, right? So, there's a spiritual principle that helps us to get from powerlessness through this. It starts with an S. Anybody?
Surrender.
Surrender. Right. So I can't always get a yes. Things are gonna happen. I don't have to act in these ways. If I surrender, okay, Mr. Alex has to wait until tomorrow morning, he really doesn't know what's going on. But is he going to be upset, uptight, angry, anxious all night long? Or is he going to use his first step? Is he gonna use his tools of recovery? Is he going to get to a place of peace where he can put this until he's actually able to come in and find out, okay, Ms. Pam, what did you need from me? Oh, I just need it. I just need it. Now, if he kept all that stuff for, 12, 14 hours, right? Now, I don't know about Mr. Alex, and I don't know about any of you, but some people could convince themselves that they're just gonna quit before I fire them. Right, because the fear is real.
This conversation, even though it's an example, is making me, bothering my stomach. That's how real that is.
Right,
Interesting.
right? But people, right, especially people with chemical imbalance, not feeling good, substance, brain disorder called disease of addiction, substance use disordered individuals, will go to that length because we have problems with rejection. And I'm just gonna go in and, because I can't bear to be rejected, let me take care of that for you, right? So, rest assured, none of that's happening, it's just an example, okay? So, we surrender to having the illness associated with the disease of addiction, the brain disorder of addiction, and that somehow when this stuff shows up, in the past, without having a spiritual tool to use, we would act up like this, but now we can do something different by surrendering that this is how we could show up, would show up, did show up, but we don't have to anymore, right? So when you think about surrender to the first step, this is who I am. I didn't ask to have this thing. All of these terrible, horrible things happened. As a matter of fact, I did a lot of horrible, terrible things. But now I've walked into a place where they say that it's not my fault, but it is my responsibility, and I can let myself off the hook. And I have the brain disorder called the disease of addiction, and it shows up in all of these ugly ways. Now I'm starting to see why all of these ugly things were happening and how I participated in them, because let's face it, I'm a good girl. I'm a good girl. Most of our patients that have ever come through here, if you draw a line in the sand and the good people are over here, the bad people are over here, I gotta tell you that my people are over here. We're good people. We just did bad things. Because of the brain disorder called the disease of addiction that causes us not to feel good, causes us not to think good, causes us to have these characteristics that are not very good. So if I could recognize those and I could take responsibility for those and I can surrender to having this thing and take responsibility for having the disease of addiction, for having alcoholism, for having a brain disorder, and I put everything that I have into healing myself from it, then I can surrender and I can let go. And I can forgive myself. And I can take all of that energy that I was trying to put those masks on and I can say, here I am, help me. Help me. Because I really want to be over here. But I don't know how to get to you then. But on a daily basis, by applying a recovery plan, by going to the meetings where people are talking about this stuff and showing me the way that I can get here. I might not get here today, but I can get here. I have hope. That's another spiritual principle, right? There's a whole bunch of them in here. Honesty, surrender. There's another one in here. Can you see it?
Acceptance.
Acceptance. Acceptance doesn't necessarily mean I like it. Acceptance doesn't even mean that I agree. Acceptance means that I use this spiritual principle of surrender. Somebody said no. Somebody did something that caused this sensation. I had all these feelings. I identify that my addiction showed up because I don't like to be powerless. How dare you tell me no? I don't know about you, but my addiction is powerful. Like they said, some people show up with chips on their shoulders. There's no chips on these shoulders when my active addiction is in full force. There are boulders on these shoulders, you understand? Like, tell me no, I'll show you, right? There's another saying in recovery, it says, I'll show you, I'll hurt me, right? So I show up with these boulders on my shoulders. I'll show you, I'll hurt me. But I surrender to all that. I recognize, look, There's something about who I am, how I'm created, my chemical makeup, my past experiences that caused me to have these boulders on my shoulders. And with daily practice of these spiritual principles of the 12 steps, ongoing therapy to help me to uncover these rough edges, I can smooth those rough edges out. I can learn how to talk calmly, be calm. I can learn how to accept myself. I can learn what surrender feels like, and I can surrender regularly. I don't surrender one time. On a daily basis, I might have to surrender 12, 15 times. Because let's face it, we're gonna have a lot more no's in life than we're gonna have yeses. And if we're affected and our ruffles get rippled every time we get a no, we're probably gonna end up drinking. When I say drinking, using, okay? So, I don't want that. I want something better. So I'm gonna learn how to surrender. I'm gonna learn how to do this stuff. I'm gonna learn how to back up, take a breath, process, maybe talk to my therapist, talk to my sponsor, raise my hand at a meeting, journal in my journal, pray to my higher power. Whatever those processes for me, it's probably gonna be all of those things. Because I have boulders on my shoulders. I need a really strong, solid recovery plan, right? Until I get to acceptance, right? So, anxiety, right? Embracing my feelings, embracing the talk, right? I might not like it, that I can't go on a pass this week with my family, but I can still get in the van and go to the meeting. I can still, come in and sit in a group room for 6 hours, even though in my head, I'm not listening to a damn thing Miss Pam said because she said no. Okay. But you're here. And if you're here and you're clean, we can go anywhere, right? We can go anywhere. So, shields up, okay? Shields up, strong shields up, okay? I don't know if I talked to this group before, but I lost a son, which is very difficult while in recovery. I did not want to use, but there were many things I wanted to do, and they weren't really good. Talk about anger, all of the, feelings, pissed off at, whoever, whatever, right? So I had to work through this process. Thank goodness I had a recovery program. Thank goodness I had a recovery plan. Thank goodness I internalized being a recovery woman. And thank goodness I had people around me that were gonna be able to support me and hold me up while I walked through this process to get to acceptance. And that's why I say, please know, acceptance doesn't necessarily mean you agree. Acceptance doesn't necessarily mean you like it. Acceptance means it is what it is, whether I like it or not. And being able to live with it and stay clean through it and not hurting yourself or hurting other people while you're doing it. So that's a big one, right? It can be, something along the lines of something on the job happens, right? Sometimes it's easier